a love that left scars on my soul. Welcome to Endless Love Stories, the channel where real love meets real heartbreak. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell because today's story will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like and share if this touches your heart. My name is Sarah and I'm 28 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened 3 years ago, but the scars are still fresh. This is the story of how I found my soulmate and lost him in the cruelest way possible. I was working at a small marketing firm in downtown Chicago when he walked into my life. His name was David, tall, dark hair, piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through me. He was our new creative director, and from the moment he introduced himself in that Monday morning meeting, I knew my world had changed forever. David wasn't just handsome, he was brilliant. The way he presented ideas, the passion in his voice when he talked about campaigns, it was magnetic. During lunch breaks, we'd sit in the office cafeteria talking for hours about everything and nothing. He made me laugh like no one ever had before. He listened to my dreams of traveling the world and told me his own stories of growing up in a small town in Ohio. After 3 months of stolen glances and coffee meetings, David finally asked me out. Our first date was perfect. Dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant, followed by a walk along Lake Michigan. Under the moonlight, he took my hand and told me he'd been waiting his whole life for someone like me. I melted right there on the spot. We became inseparable. David would bring me flowers every Friday, not expensive roses, but wildflowers he'd pick on his morning runs. He'd leave sweet notes in my desk drawer that would make my coworkers tease me about glowing. On weekends, we'd explore Chicago together. Art galleries, farmers markets, jazz clubs. He made the ordinary feel extraordinary. 6 months in, David told me he loved me. We were watching the sunset from his apartment balcony when he turned to me, his eyes serious and tender. "Sarah," he said, "I've never felt this way about anyone. You're my person, my everything." I cried happy tears as I told him I loved him too. It felt like the beginning of our forever. But that's when she appeared, Rebecca, David's college girlfriend. She showed up at our office one rainy Tuesday, claiming she was in town for work. She was everything I wasn't: tall, blonde, confident in a way that made me feel small. She knew David's friends, his family, his history in ways I never could. She had 5 years of memories with him that I could never compete with. Rebecca started showing up everywhere. At the coffee shop where David and I had our first unofficial date. At the gym where he worked out after work. She'd text him constantly, always with some emergency or crisis that needed his attention. "She's going through a rough divorce," David would explain, his face full of concern. "She needs a friend right now." I watched helplessly as Rebecca slowly pulled David away from me. Their friendly coffee meetings became longer. He'd cancel our weekend plans because Rebecca needed help moving or had a family emergency. When I tried to talk to David about how uncomfortable this made me, he'd get defensive. "You're being paranoid, Sarah. Rebecca and I are just friends. You should trust me more." The beginning of the end came on David's birthday. I had planned a surprise party with all his work friends and had been secretly organizing it for weeks. But when I arrived at the restaurant, David wasn't there. I called him frantically until he finally answered. "I'm sorry, baby," he said, sounding genuinely apologetic. "Rebecca was having a panic attack and I had to drive her to the hospital. Rain check on tonight." I spent David's birthday alone in that restaurant, surrounded by confused guests and a chocolate cake that read, "Happy birthday, my love." I knew then that I was losing him, but I couldn't bring myself to walk away. I loved him too much. The final blow came 2 weeks later. I had a key to David's apartment and decided to surprise him with homemade dinner after a particularly stressful day at work. I let myself in, calling his name as I headed to the kitchen. But the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. That's when I heard soft, laughter coming from the bedroom. My heart stopped as I recognized Rebecca's voice. I stood frozen in the hallway, grocery bag still in my hands, as I heard David's voice mixed with hers. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. The man who had promised me forever was in there with the woman who had systematically destroyed our relationship. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream or throw things or demand explanations. I simply set the groceries down on the counter, placed my key next to them, and walked out of that apartment and David's life forever. The next morning, David called me dozens of times. He showed up at my office at my apartment, desperate to explain. But what explanation could possibly heal the wound he'd carved into my heart? He chose her. After everything we'd built together, after all the promises and dreams we'd shared, he chose his past over our future. I found out later that Rebecca had planned the whole thing. She'd never gotten over David and had spent months manipulating situations to win him back. She'd used her divorce as an excuse to re-enter his life, played the victim to earn his sympathy, and slowly poisoned our relationship with her constant presence. She was the villain in our love story, but David had let her be. I quit my job and moved to Seattle for a fresh start. It's been 3 years since I walked out of that apartment, and I'm finally beginning to heal. I've learned that real love doesn't make you compete for attention. Real love doesn't leave you wondering where you stand. Real love doesn't choose someone else. David taught me what it felt like to be truly loved, but he also taught me that sometimes the person you'd take a bullet for is the one holding the gun. Some scars never fully fade, but they remind us of lessons we needed to learn. I'm grateful for the love I experienced, even though it left me broken. It showed me what I deserve and what I'll never settle for again. The lesson here is simple. Never ignore the red flags. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Your heart deserves someone who chooses you every single day, not just when it's convenient. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Endless Love Stories for more real tales of love, loss, and everything in between. Remember, your story isn't over yet. The best chapters might still be unwritten. Until next time, keep believing in love, but never forget to love yourself first.